As expected with the election results of last Tuesday night, there's been a lot of conversation and consternation among Democrats about the future of our country and the future of our party. A lot of questions about lessons learned and the solutions required to regaining the trust of voters across the country that will put us back in control of the agenda in Congress. It's fair to say that there are many reasons why any one individual race was decided, and I will leave that analysis to our very able pundits, which will be on this panel after me. But there's one clear and straightforward conclusion from the 2014 midterms that every single person serving in Congress must embrace and look within themselves to solve. The American people are angry. They're frustrated with the dysfunction of Congress. They look at Washington and they know that it's broken. They don't see a Congress that works for them. They see endless political games and posturing more than they see Democrats and Republicans coming together to find core common values and get things done. And they want to listen. They want us to listen to them and do our jobs. And I am as frustrated as they are. This is the message of the 2014 midterm election. The people of this country are desperate to see something change with the way things are done in Washington. So I hope that the Republicans are sincere and actually want to do the business of the American people, focus on the economy, and get things done. And I know we can get things done because in my very short time in the Senate, I've seen it firsthand. From passing the 9/11 health bill to repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and even though it ultimately fell victim to a filibuster like most things have in the Senate, we saw the debate over how to best adjudicate sexual assault cases in the military scramble the partisan divide. So I'm hopeful that there will be a sincere effort to work together. But as we examine the outcome of the election, one thing I've heard over the last few days that bothers me is that Democrats focused too much on talking to women voters. I resent the notion that we shouldn't be talked to directly and be talking directly to women about issues that we care about. You hear that focusing on the quote-unquote war on women was a mistake. It's a shame that the range of issues that affect women have been successfully rebranded into this one trite phrase to dust off the shoulder. Because in my view, the Republican Party as a whole does not have a branding problem with women as much as they have a policy problem with women. Let me be clear. There's a real difference between the parties on the full range of policies that affect women and their families. So the answer is not to stop talking about these issues. We should have this debate in Congress and with the American people. But I believe that we as Democrats need to internalize that just like women want and expect access to the full range of healthcare options, they also want and expect a debate about the full range of economic issues that impact their lives. Things like not having access to paid leave, or affordable daycare, or universal pre-K, or basic equal pay for equal work, all while the minimum wage remains at below poverty level salary for working moms. At a time when 70% of women with children at home are working not just on these issues, but on all issues, but middle-class economic issues and middle-class economic challenges are still there. These issues, the issues that affect all women, are a drag on the economy, and they are issues that deserve to be debated. I hope my Republican friends will agree that just because these issues more acutely affect women, although they affect women more acutely, they're not just women's issues, but they're critical economic middle-class issues that, if solved, could immediately strengthen our economy. This is exactly where the American people want us to come together and find the solutions to get things done. Now, don't get me wrong. The issues of women's rights to choose and reproductive rights and medicines are critically important fights that we are blessed to have so many incredible advocates waging this battle every single day. And we must continue to draw a line in the sand to fight back against any additional efforts in Congress to roll back those rights by a single inch. But we also need to debate about the full range of issues women are animated about. To the extent Republicans are willing to work with us, I welcome that conversation and stand ready with an open hand to be the first person in line to work together. Because women don't want a wedge issue. They want progress. And I believe strongly that we as Democrats need to lead this debate and create real progress by working with our Republican friends so that we can deliver for the American people. And so if the new Congress is serious about looking for some common sense ideas where we can actually come together and agree, and where we can actually get some legislation passed that help the American people, why not start with the American Opportunity Agenda that I first unveiled here at the Center for American Progress? Let's make the American Opportunity Agenda common ground and turn these middle-class economic challenges into a middle-class economic engine. First, let's finally become the last industrialized nation in the world to create paid family medical leave. This is an issue that has too long been simply a gender-focused women's issue, but that's not at all what it is. We should be thinking about paid leave and medical leave as family-focused policies. Right now, the United States is the only advanced economy in the world that doesn't guarantee paid family and medical leave. Only 12% of American workers have access to it. This unfortunate distinction has some very serious consequences, not just for women, but for our economy. Without paid leave, fewer than half of all new mothers return to work after taking time off to care for their families. Replacing these women employees is estimated to have cost American companies some $3.3 billion. But remember, it doesn't just affect women. Fathers deserve more time to bond with their children and support their families if one of them is ill. Middle-class families deserve to be able to care for an ailing parent without risking a job. Even single men can benefit in the event they are injured or their parents need assistance after a surgery. Already, major companies like Citibank and Facebook and Morgan Stanley have offered all of their employees, men and women, paid family leave. And they have seen higher worker retention, reduced benefit costs, and most importantly, happier employees. For small businesses too, paid family and medical leave makes good business sense. A national level program like the one My Family Act calls for would level the playing field between a large employer and a small one. In fact, after California passed its own version of the plan, it was the medium and small-sized businesses that reported the most positive responses. In my home state of New York, 60% of businesses already support having publicly administered paid leave programs because they know it will help their productivity. For the cost of a cup of coffee a week, this new earned benefit will seriously strengthen our economy, and it won't add a dime to the deficit. Next, we should have universal pre-K in this country. Here's an important fact about kids. By the time they enter kindergarten, there's already a huge achievement gap between those who had access to pre-K and those that didn't. Each year, millions of children lose out on critically important early childhood education because their parents simply can't afford it. As a result, the gap between rich and poor turns into a gap between those who are well educated and those who are not. And it gets passed down from generation to generation. If we don't get our act together now and find a way to make universal pre-K happen, our country is going to fall further behind the rest of the world. We need to invest in future generations of America, just like we have in my home state of New York with our leadership from our governor and our mayor. It's a moral issue, but it's also a very clear economic one. It's estimated that for every dollar you put into universal pre-K now, every child who participates will generate up to $11 economic benefits over their lifetimes. Few investments have a better rate of return or more common sense. Third, and equally related, we have to make childcare affordable. Having a child is one of life's greatest blessings. But for the vast majority of expecting parents, a new bundle of joy places strains on a family's budget. food, diapers, clothes, toys, baby gear, maybe even a bigger place to live if you can afford it. As they grow up, the list only expands. That's all expected. But here's one you won't expect. Today, most Americans spend more money on childcare than on food, housing, and for some families, even college. And it wasn't always this way, but the cost of childcare has skyrocketed to the tune of 70% increase in the last 25 years when adjusted for inflation. To put that into perspective, in 2012, a single mother making a median income in New York spent more than 45% of her annual salary to care for an infant, according to a report from Child Care Aware. For a mom like Amber Dixon from Buffalo, New York, she worked in an industrial job for 19 years and was able to support her son and buy a home. She works hard, she plays by the rules, but she got caught between daycare she can barely afford and job flexibility that would move her away from higher paying industrial work into service industries or part-time work, once again chipping away at the earning power of the middle class. It doesn't have to be this way, and Congress shouldn't stand on the sidelines. We can update America's workplace policies to reflect the face of the modern workforce. And one place to start doing this is a common sense change to the tax code targeted towards middle-income families. The child care tax deduction, legislation that I already have bipartisan support with Senator Rand Paul, would create an above-the-line deduction of $7,000 per child of child care expenses up to 2 kids. This would provide a family with 2 children earning $80,000 a year, spending $14,000 a year on child care expenses, a $3,500 in tax savings, almost 3 times what this family could get under current law. This is a reform we should all be able to agree on. Fourth, and perhaps most frustrating, we should raise the minimum wage. It's very long overdue, and it disproportionately affects women. Over the last few decades, American families with a male breadwinner and a female homemaker have plummeted from a majority down to just 20%. If you live on a block of 10 homes, only 2 of them are where a husband goes to work and a wife stays at home. Times have changed in this country, but the minimum wage hasn't budged since the last decade. Almost 2/3 of minimum wage workers in America are women, and more women are the sole or primary breadwinners in their families. But a minimum wage job, even if it's a 40-hour-a-week job, 52 weeks a year, is still going to leave you thousands of dollars below the poverty line. A minimum wage job for a hardworking mom is going to leave her completely unable to provide her children with the support they need. Here's the truth about the minimum wage. If it's so low that it leaves Americans stuck in poverty, then it's bad for our families, and it's bad for our economy. It's bad for business. It's bad for the country. The election last Tuesday proved that raising the minimum wage is no longer a partisan issue. 4 very red states, including Nebraska and South Dakota, voted to raise their own minimum wages because they know that more money in the pockets of low-income families is good for them, their states, and their economies. The 5th common sense issue that we should finally agree on, equal pay for equal work. Again, this has been seen simply as a gender issue that only affects women. But that is simply not the case. Equal pay is a family issue because when mom gets systemically shortchanged, it holds back her entire family and the entire middle class. It's estimated that if women were paid equally to men, $1 on the dollar, our GDP could be raised by up to 4%. According to CAP's analysis, voters said support for paycheck fairness moved their votes. This should be clear to everyone in Congress. When mom is out working, but her company won't pay her as much as a man doing the same job, everyone suffers. Without equal pay, we are putting an artificial brake on our economy. As I said in the beginning, the American people want us to get to work. On Election Day, the top 2 issues were gridlock and the economy. And it's incumbent upon all of us to listen. So let's take this head on with an economic plan that spurs a recovery and works for the middle class.